Hello, everybody. Welcome. We will get started in just a moment. Please feel free to rename yourselves by clicking the little three dots in the corner of your picture. If you want to let us know where you are, who you are, and where you're coming to us from. Also, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. We're happy to be here with you all and looking forward to getting started in just a moment. For those of you just joining us, hi and welcome to Humentum's webinar today on operationalizing locally led development, flipping the script on partnerships. Please feel free to welcome us in the chat. Feel free to tell us who you are, where you're coming to us from, and where you work. We'd love to get to know you, and we'll be getting started in just a moment here. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you here for today's webinar. This is the final webinar in our Operationalizing Locally Led Development series, and we're going to be speaking with three different local organizations all about their thoughts on flipping the script on partnerships. So before I hand it over to my colleagues, I'm just going to go over a couple of housekeeping pieces of information. First of all, I'd like to thank our industry partners, which are Humentum's vetted database of industry partners that provide assistance to our members. Their support makes events like these possible, so just wanted to give them a shout out here. Next, if you have questions, please do put them in the chat as we go throughout the event. There will be time later on to open it up for Q&A, but please feel free to share your thoughts, questions, reflections in the chat. It definitely makes the event more fun and dynamic if we're all chiming in. Subtitles are available. You can turn them on by clicking below. You can do captions or live transcription, and we are recording this webinar, and we will be sending up a follow-up email with the recording after the event. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kim Kazinskis, who is Humentum's Director of Organizational Transformation, to start us off today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. It's lovely to have everyone here. Welcome, welcome. Very excited to be heading up the final webinar in Humentum's Operationalizing Locally Led Development webinar series. This is something that we have been doing for a number of years now, which means we have been talking about locally led development for a long time in this current iteration. We know that this has been a much longer conversation, trend, and trajectory. But what that all means is that we know that there are some things we know about locally led development at this stage. So we know that there are systems in place that often act as barriers to change. To put it another way, we know that systems are in place that work to reinforce a certain way of doing development, and that has been happening for quite a long time. So if it was easy to change, it would have been changed by now. And yet, we also know that there is a wealth of experience and a growing body of knowledge about how to do things differently. So that's what this year's webinar series has been all about. We have been using this space to elevate examples of how individuals, how organizations, networks, initiatives, etc., are contributing fresh and new narratives, are really flipping the script on traditional approaches of doing development and humanitarian work. Thinking about questions like who's trying something new, what's working for them, and really where they have tried and failed, what have they learned? So This really is the second webinar that I have moderated on how organizations are sharing power through partnerships. This is the second part in a longer conversation that started in September. Some of you on today's call may have been there for that call in September. Some of you may not have been, and that's okay. So that first conversation was with representatives from PATH, Unitaid, JSI, and the Stopping Us Success Initiative. During that conversation, the panelists and myself talked about the importance of changing mindsets and practices in systems change. And they shared some practical tools that they are implementing to inform and to benchmark their progress. I'm going to put here a blog that came out of that conversation in September so that you can follow up for more information. So today's conversation really has been designed to build on that initial discussion. Also, we are very open for it to take on a life of its own. That's what's exciting about these spaces. What I'm going to do now is turn it over to our three panelists who we have today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then we can go ahead and get started. So if we could have Aiby Meshesha from Nuru, Ethiopia. We have Jameel Abdo from Tamdeen Youth Foundation in Yemen. And we have Dr. Mary Namubiru from the Joint Clinical Research Center in Uganda. Very happy to have you all join me today. And here's what I would love for you all to do. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Please share who you are, where you're from, what you bring to this conversation. As I just mentioned, this webinar is called Flipping the Script on Partnerships. And so really, and we're looking at it through the lens of how we operationalize, how we put in place this thing called locally led development. So what I'd love to hear from you, in addition to, more about yourselves, is what that means to you, what flipping the script on partnership means to you. How do you think the sector and its various players, so INGOs, CSOs, governments, how are they doing on walking the talk on reimagining partnerships? And we can start with whoever. Mary, you are the first person that I see on my screen, so feel free to jump in.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Namubiru from the Joint Clinical Research Center, one of the oldest research organizations here in Uganda, East Africa. We do a lot of research and we've contributed significantly to both policy in Uganda and globally, especially related to HIV and TB. And we are one of the few local organizations that have benefited from USAID's capacity building for local organization under the localization agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Can you tell me so you've benefited from USAID's this program, the transition awards. And so can you tell me, what do you think about this flipping the script on partnerships? Is it real? Is it just words?
Yeah. Thank you. It is real and it's nice experiencing it. Yeah, on our side as the Joint Clinical Research Center, we've had a chance of working with USAID and international organizations. We worked with JSI and the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, EGPAF. And here, we started off working with them as a partner. We also did some work with them as just an MOU, a casual relationship, from casual relationship into a formal sub-grantee. And along the way, a number of processes happened to the level that currently we are a fully fledged implementing partner. While working with the international organizations, we did work as a sub-partner where the prime partner, international NGO, was responsible and accountable for the award while on our side, they would assign some bit of scope, geographical location, a few deliverables for you to handle that would be prescribed regularly. And they would remain accountable and communicate to the donor on a regular basis. Currently, that has changed drastically, where we are the prime partners. We are responsible for communicating, negotiating business, discussing plans directly with the donor, mainly USAID currently. But also as a local organization with the capacity that has been built, we are in charge of designing, engaging the donor, co-creating, planning, implementation, monitoring our results to achieve results. And I would say that we are currently doing that well, and we are very proud of going through this process. We did receive a transitional award specifically to help with the capacity building process, which I would say that this was a progressive, well-planned, intentional capacity building activity. So this transition award had a span of about 2 years with deliberate, intentional capacity building with high intensity, frequency at the beginning, which was progressively tapered over the two years. And in here, I would say that at the beginning, the international partner was actively coaching, mentoring us for both program management and technical program implementation. But by end of the first year, 12 months, we were able to do that on ourselves with the international partner, probably coaching and providing supervisory coordination work. And by end of the 2 years, we were good to go, and we are happy. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that kind of introduction. And if anyone is interested in learning about transition awards, please put your questions for Mary in the chat. All right, Jameel, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit about your thoughts on this topic? Are we walking the talk? What is working in reimagining partnership approaches, and what's not?
Thank you very much, Kim. My name is Jameel Abdo. I am the CEO of Tamdeen Youth Foundation, local NGO in Yemen. I am also a leadership council member for Nuru Network, and also member of operational and advocacy working group, ISAC, operational and advocacy working group. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk in this webinar and to share our experience on the partnership. What's happened from my point of view, that there is a lot of talk, a lot of commitment about partnership, equitable partnership, and all these things from the donor, from INGOs, and from INGOs. But there is nothing but to action. What we want to have an actionable plan for what we talk. We want to walk the talk, and but all these actions that put it in action to have really understanding or understanding how equitable partnership, what's equitable partnership mean for the others, and giving the opportunity to local NGOs to be a partner and equal partner, not only an implementing partner. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Aiby, I think you were here. Did you drop off? There you are, I see you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry that there is interruption of a connection.
No worries.
This is Aiby from Nuru, Ethiopia, Managing Director. This is Nuru. Is the term Nuru may be new for most of you. It's a Swahili language. It's to say that the light for the people under the extreme poverty. We are an organization fighting extreme poverty from the rural communities, and we are locally lead organizations. We have a lot of transitional process for mind shift from international concept to locally lead organization. So when the term comes, I will explain how our connection with US Nuru is lead to the locally lead organizations. Thank you. That's introduction now.
Perfect. Thank you. And maybe we can start there, Aiby. I always like to start these spaces with language. I think it's important to start with an explanation of the language that we're using, because in each space that we find ourselves in, language can shift and can mean different things. So we talk about locally led development. You all three of you, I would imagine, are often finding yourself sitting between the communities that you serve and the INGOs and the funders that you partner with. So what does local mean to you, and how are you navigating those different spaces? I'm interested because I think that how you navigate those spaces can potentially inform the conversation on localization. So maybe, Aiby, if you wouldn't mind taking that and just continuing with what you just started, because I know that Nuru often does sit in that, Nuru Ethiopia often sits in the middle of those two spaces. You're on mute, Aiby.
So I can explain the details. When Nuru 2012, it was begun by the
I think your connection is just breaking up. We'll give you a moment. All right, hopefully Aiby will come back on with his connection. Mary or Jameel, would you like to jump in and talk about what local means to you? How you define that term?
Okay. Thank you very much. On my side, when I think about locally led development, I'm looking at indigenous organizations, indigenous-driven organizations. They are registered and recognized within the country. Local, I would prefer the country, not just a region, but the country. This team is fully engaged in the program management, in decision-making, and fully accountable for the results. They are in the position of providing technical assistance or development assistance to the country. And on our side, I would give an example of Uganda. We value that because that's the way we look at sustainability. Locally led development, we are building capacity in these local organizations. Then we think about sustainability. When the international organizations are out, or as the funds dwindle, then we'll be able to have capacity within the country to offer such support. Thank you.
Thank you. I can come in. What's local means to me that you have the same value, the same tradition, the same language you speak. And also we have this locals means that you sharing the same geographical area. So by sharing the same geographical area, you will have the same concept of and the same perceptions for everything that you have within the community you are lived with. Thank you.
Yep, that makes sense. Aiby, welcome back.
Sorry for my connection. Really
No
sorry.
worries.
So can I start?
Please.
Okay, Jen, when this Nuru Ethiopia started in Ethiopia, we started with the foreign staffs from Nuru US, and they came to us with their model, with their structures, just to start the implementation in Ethiopia. That is not only done by themselves, but they recruited the local team from each department, starting from leadership to each program areas. Because the initial issue is to leverage the local knowledge with the expertise from the external. During the start in Ethiopia, that the term localization is not largely taken by the global system. But from very beginning, Nuru has its own model that focuses on the local capacities. So they started with local team, with the support with the external, the foreign staff. And they have the linkage with one country representative of the director from the local has the team leader, the counter partner, and each program from agriculture, cooperative, health, education. Each of them have advisors that is specialists from the foreigner. The objective is that two things. The first one is in the form of co-creations of the implementation plan. Co-creation is very much important because the local expert, the local knowledge is with the local team, but the area expertise are from the foreign environment. Then these teams took a long time with us. The objective is to equip the local staff capacity to execute, to implement, and to monitor the change and to scale the initiatives to the new area. That need to be led by the local team, not by the foreign structures. But the beginning is on the skill transfer from the experts to the local team was then through the years. They think long time in Ethiopia. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can. And how long did that take? What was the kind of time frame?
Just in Ethiopia, it took about 5 years. In 5 years interval, they ensured that the local staff are capable of taking the overall responsibility for their community to lead the programs with the model that's already provided. So at that time, we had one department that is a leadership department. The objective of that leadership department in our organization was to equip the local staff's knowledge, skills on each program areas in the leadership, in monitoring. So we developed that skill in our cases. Then that satisfaction level is fulfilled. And when we are becoming very much strong, the gradual withdrawal was made for all the Ferengi teams. So 100% the Ferengi team from Ethiopia was out by 2080. And I took the overall responsibility in 2080. From that to this year, just I'm leading the organization for the past 7 years. So what we have learned is we have a skill, we have potential to take over all responsibility about our community. We are working with them, and we are now at better positions than the past. Because when I'm receiving the organization, for example, I took about 26 farmer organization under that model, but at this time we have more than 230 farmer organization at this. That is a big scale. That is under 7 unions. So we are able to develop project designs. We are able to execute that programs. We are able to measure our changes and to communicate that to local and the international systems. Even the donors, the back donors of us were happy to give the responsibility to the local team than the international team. So now the Nuru model scaling in Africa in wider coverage now. These all Nuru structures are linked by the vision level. Nuru, Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Burkina, Ghana, everywhere, we have common vision. But when we come to the level of mission, we are different.
So I'm hearing two different things from the three of you when we talk about how you define local. One is, I think, in terms of, and please correct me if I'm getting this wrong. One is in terms of in doing the work, the work needs to be understood, contextualized, the language, understanding the communities, understanding the needs to be local. And Aiby, what you're also talking about, however, is the second piece, which is the structure of the organization. So how the structure of the organization is defined in terms of, is it local, is it international, etc. And I think that's sometimes where we get stuck in the narrative and in the conversation when we talk about these things. The other thing we get stuck on is the terms that we use. And so there's a question here in the chat around, interested to hear, Jameel, Mary, Aiby, what you think about the terms localization versus locally led development versus shift the power, share the power. I've recently heard take back the power, decolonization. How do those terms all kind of fit into your world, and what do you prefer to use? Or what resonates the most with you?
Yeah, for me, this localization is the responsibility of decision making, the responsibilities of planning, executing the programs, monitoring the changes, and scaling of the initiative is led by the local team. Even though we are binded with international office, the international organizations with the vision level, but we have our different mission statement of 10 years that we build each 10 years. So that all decision happens at my office level. It is not, I am not totally 100% dependent on them, but we have ability to decide.
Yes.
To our community's benefit. We know our structure, we know the demand at the community level. We understand our community more than the others. So that responsibility was given 100% for us. For example, at the beginning, when the expat team, the foreign teams are working here in Ethiopia with me, I was seen as a country director. That means I am representative. But now I am not a country director or a representative. I am a managing director. I am a decision maker in this local structure. That is what we call the local elite. We are just doing it 100%. That is the way. And that the initiative for the organization from very beginning, where the locally, international community, we are not talking about localization. Nuru already started that perspective. At the model of Nuru, if you see our model structures, usually it talks about localization. Our model is focusing on the local leaders. That's why they spent a lot of time to equip us with the knowledge, experts, then to leave the organization. They are not with us. One thing is when they exit from Ethiopia, in each program, they had one representative that is a technical advisor. But when they withdraw from Ethiopia, for each department, that connection was broken. For whole organization, there is advisor. That is weekly call attachments with different, that is to equip us. We see each other as a sister organization. We are not naming us one in the US is our international. We are not saying US are not our international office. We are sister organizations with equal authority and the responsibility. Am I clear?
Yes, perfectly clear. Thank you for that.
The other thing is, the one thing is, we are cascading the same model to our farmer organizations. This is to make more localized system, to build a more localized system. That means that we have a farmer organization, what we call cooperative, the primary cooperative, secondary cooperative, and the tertiary cooperative structures.
Yeah.
For this, we hire staff as what was done for us, for Nuru Ethiopia in the past. And the foreigners came to us to keep ourselves for different programs. We do the same thing to the farmer organization. We hire individuals here. When these farmer organizations get more equipped with knowledge and skills to run their own operations, withdraw from that. And when we ensure the sustainability, the financial sustainability, management sustainability, impact sustainability, and their scaling potential, withdraw from that environment. That is the way how we cascade the same tempo to the farmer organization.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting part around that term local that sometimes gets missed, which is that it really is very much positional. So as what I'm hearing from you, Aiby, is that, you know, the transition took about 5 years, and kind of similar to what Mary was saying, where it kind of cascaded and then tapered off. And then now you're doing a similar thing with local farmer organizations and kind of acting in a similar progression, which I think is a really interesting thing we can explore in just a bit. But I want to hear from Jameel about the different terms that you see in your world.
Thank you very much. It's like the difference between localization and locally led. Localization means that to us, or the localization comes from the grand marine commitment and how to involve the local partners or local NGOs in the humanitarian or development work. And it consists of like they just limited it to the 25% of the total fund goes to the local partners. That's the localization means to be. But the locally led is different. That means that the local organization and local actors, they lead the process. They are the leaders. They are leading the process of the humanitarian and development response, the humanitarian response and development work, which is give us like give them like a bigger role than the localization. Localization means participation, but locally led means leading the process and leading the work. Shifting the power, this is and power shifting the power comes from how to shift the power from NGOs or INGOs donor to the locals, and how this power it's like how the donors and INGOs willing to release some of their power they have in their hands to the local organization.
I think that what you just said was really interesting, Jameel, which is that localization is more, from what I hear from you, is more of it's a policy, and it's about participation in the process. But locally led is about actually local organizations leading, driving, taking ownership of, and I think that's a really important distinction. Mary, would you like to add anything for that?
Yeah, I think the key thing really in locally led development is we are having the local actors in the driver's seat. They're responsible for the planning, the decision making, they're accountable. Well, yeah, localization is localization. We are looking at can I call them? Yeah, still the local organizations coming on board and empowering them, which is not so different from what Noel and Jameel are saying.
Right. So let me ask you this: in that world where, in a locally led world where local organizations are in the driver's seat and are responsible for the agenda and the programming, you know, really the decision-making accountability is what I'm hearing. What role how will the roles of INGOs and funders necessarily need to change? So how will INGOs, for example, need to transform their roles, so what they're doing in your spaces, and then operate their operations, so how they do it, in order for them to continue to be relevant and legitimate and sustainable?
Okay, Thank you. I can start. This is Mary. Yeah, this to me, this entire thing is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And as we move on along the road, capacities are built, and probably capacity is also not built in one day. So the way I look at the relevance of international organizations, I feel that periodically we need to continue assessing ourselves, like we normally do NOPAS or OCAS, trying to find out what skills have been built, where are the gaps, so that as the international organizations come in, they're coming in not to prescribe, but we work together as partners, realize where the gaps are, and jointly we come up with, let's say, a capacity building plan, and we implement that together. The international organization is building that as we monitor progress. And like on my side, they've really done well in building capacity. They've transferred skills, the technical expertise. During the transition, they also transitioned. They were good enough to transition their human resource, which we now have, and it's helping us implement so that we sustain the goals. The other area, like currently, I see that they are still critical, is building our capacity in resource mobilization, because we cannot talk about capacity of a local organization if it cannot generate its own resources, it cannot mobilize its own resources. So can we have the international organizations come in to bridge such a gap? Is it monitoring forecasts on a regular basis? Is it the way to respond to RFAs, helping them? Like on my side, that's the way I see their main role. And then again, helping us probably coordinate in this process. Thank you.
Yeah, and what I love about the example that you share, your example, Mary, is that in your award, it was built into the transition plan was built into the award, and dare I say, funded. So there was financial support to give you the space to do what you're saying, to identify the gaps, to fill those gaps, to start to build the operational strength that's necessary to take on the responsibility. And if there are any funders in the room, I think, or any advocates in the room, I think this is a really important piece that we sometimes forget about, which is building in this space, the time and the space for this shift takes time, thought, person power, financial resources. And it's a really important thing that we can't forget. Jameel or Aiby, would you like to add anything on this question of the role that INGOs can and should play as local organizations start to drive and lead more in this space?
I can go. International NGOs should start to give the opportunity to the local organization to lead this process. For example, how can this make? For example, they can give the chance, especially give the opportunity for local organization to lead the consortium. Yes, there is a local organization, they don't have access to some donors, and they cannot apply for some donors because they don't have the capacity, for example, or the regulation of of this donor, they don't accept local organization directly. But in consortium with the international NGO, they can apply. So why not they give them the opportunity to lead these consortiums? This is one of the things that international NGOs should start looking at, because this is also give them the first step to give the lead to the local organization. This is one thing. On the other hand, also don't treat the local organization as implementing partner, and it's really think about local organization as an equitable or an equal partner with you, and it should be they have shared vision, shared decision making, like equitable or accountability to each other. They have open communication with each other. They have to do this. And so this is how they can give the chance for local organizations to be locally led.
And I would imagine, Jameel, that that would extend to knowledge sharing as well, right? I hear
Knowledge
all the
sharing, yeah.
time about, you know, partners that are not sharing budget information or full proposal information or all of these things. Those are maybe some very practical examples. So you all have opened up a whole lot of interest in the chat. About the kind of practicalities of what this means. And so there are a good number of questions that I'm hoping you can answer around around financial management and around fundraising. Things like your overhead costs, right? So how are your organizations managing your overhead costs? Is it just the de minimis, or do you have a more formally established negotiated indirect cost rate, or NICRA? And how are you also managing fundraising and financial management? Is that part of the transition or the relationship with partners, or is that completely sitting with you all?
Okay, from our case before transition, we were seen as a sub-recipients of the international funding. So we were just focusing on implementation, not on the fundraising activities. But after transition, when the ownership and the responsibility was shifted to us, we were in the front to fight the fundraising activity in collaboration with international, I mean, not international, but with sister organization. So we have gotten concertia opportunities to work from Netherlands too, and the foreign side too. That is important for us because some of the bids that are announced for competition has a high volume of money, that's multiple $1 million, and sometimes they request the experience of managing that amount of money. So sometimes these locally lead teams may not experience that volume of money. So consortia formation equips with that potential. So when these internationals sometimes come with that potential, and you are locally linked to the community, so that consortia can bring a positive impacts. In some cases, like USAID grants, some international organizations take the USAID grants, and that is sub-granted to local organization. Then the local organization will build their capacity through the process, and they are eligible to claim for the direct grants, and that they are conducting the system and happening from Ethiopia. Just I am observing that. So sometimes working with international and then claiming the budget for direct injection is also a positive trend. In our case of overhead cost management, still now I have not faced any kinds of challenge because the government of Ethiopia has its own directives over the program and the admin cost limits. And we manage our budget that we have according to the government policies. I don't know how the other countries are behaving, but in Ethiopia, we have specific details on the NGOs operating in Ethiopia. So we adjust ourselves to that limitations.
Thank you for that. Jameel, did you want to add to that? And you might see some other questions in the chat around, is the 15% de minimis enough, if that applies to you at all?
Thank you very much. With regarding the overhead cost, that we have to negotiate hard with the donors and with the others. They have like a specific or just restricted amount for overhead cost, like 7%, 4%, and other, which is not really enough for local NGOs to share, especially on conflict context. What's happened? there is a lot of requirement, operational costs, like especially security, safety for the humanitarian response, the humanitarian aid workers, especially in the frontliner response, frontline area of response. What's happening is the international NGO and donors, they want to implement the work in the safely and without impact, without harm, but they don't feel or treat this assessment. For example, when we as a local NGO, when we ask a budget for risk mitigation or for emergency equipment in case of something happen to the local NGOs, to the aid workers, it's very hard to get it, or it's very hard. While it's easy for international NGOs to get it, to have it. Why this is different? What's happening is it's about the risk. They are transferring the risk without it's not sharing the risk, transferring the risk to local NGOs. What's happening is, for example, INGO got the project for from the donor as intermediary, and they have like 10, at least 5 to 6% dedicated to security, safety and security for their own people. But when it's and they don't have access to the area of intervention, so they ask a local organization to go there. They don't give him this six or part of this 6%. They have it for their own safety and security. Why? I don't know. This is part of the the commitment they should be accept. Partnership is about risk sharing, not risk transfer. We have to share the risk together. We have to, yes, as INGO, you have to protect your own people as from threat, but also me as a local NGO, I have to protect protect my people also. So this is the one of the things that we need to look at it in the partnership, and how to flip the partnership from being risk transferring to risk sharing approach. On the other on the other hand, about fundraising. Fundraising, it should be in a localization context, or in a localization context, it's led by like the international NGOs, and they don't local NGOs, when they work together, they don't feeling the ownership. So it should be locally led. The fundraising should be locally led in support with INGOs. Thank you.
So this idea of flipping the risk from risk transfer to risk sharing is not a new one, but I think it's a hard one to get into the real practicalities. And I heard one thing that you said, Jameel, which is if we're going to actually start to transfer the risk and share the risk, then we need to be also sharing the resources to do so. And so I think what I'm hearing from you is that the resources are not necessarily flowing down in an equal way. And that may be a very practical thing to think about, both in terms of how our funders and INGO partners facilitating the flow down of resources, so to really make sure that that risk can be equitably shared. So that's one thing that I just heard. That's another kind of practical thing. Mary, would you like to add anything? And you might be seeing some of the conversation happening in the chat as well around the funding, around the overhead, and then also around there's this question around risk sharing as well, about if you don't have the track record with institutional funding, how is that working in terms of risk sharing?
Okay, thank you. From my experience, what happened our side, like I said, we had a capacity assessment. So there was deliberate time and resources to build capacity in the areas which had gaps. Here, some of the areas I would say we looked at, we're looking at finance systems, setting up audit systems, tracking systems, whether tracking for fuel, fleet management. So all that was put in place. We had deliberate plans and we worked together to have them addressed. When we come to currently, as we implement one that was put in place about the indirect costs, yeah, we look at a de minimis. You asked whether it's adequate. I think, especially for an organization which is just coming up, it's hard to say that just the de minimis is appropriate, because many times there are many challenges. There are systems you want to put in place, whether a full-blown IT system to help you, protect you from hackers, or so many other things. And at times it requires a lot of money, and the minimus may not be adequate. However, I would say that we are happy. We started off with 10%, and I think this year we moved from 10% to 15%. So before we say it's not enough, let's first of all be happy with the 15, see what we can do with 15 as we try to negotiate for more. Thank you.
I think it's a good point. Let's take what we can get, and then we can negotiate for more. So let me ask you all, power has come up a little bit in these different conversations, and I think we can't talk about partnerships without talking about power in any relationship that humans have, whether it's peer-to-peer, whether it's service provider community, prime sub, funders, grantees. There's always going to be inherent power differences. So how are you seeing power shift in practical ways? I've heard a few examples, but what are you seeing in terms of your either in terms of your relationships or in terms of your policies and practices? How are you seeing power shift in the different relationships that you hold? Jameel.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Just we still have an issue with the power shift. Still, you know that it's too difficult to release the power from your side. It's like a human being that as a human being, it's too difficult to release some of the power you have. How about the whole power you want to? We still have in our partnership that we have along with other INGOs, donor and UN agencies, still the power in their hands. They don't give us the whole power. Some of INGO, they give you some of the power, but not it should be power imbalance. It should be power. The power I have is same as the amount of the work I have or I share. So it should be sharing at the same amount at least. So what's happening is the INGOs, donor, and UN agencies, they don't give you the power. They give you a minimal power enough to not like overcome them or to be still in need to them.
The power
Thank
I
you.
have it should be the same as the work that I have. And I would imagine we should say the resource power that I have should be the same as the work that I have. I like that. Thank you. Aiby, would you like to add anything to that with regards to sharing power, and in particular, I think for you, how you're both managing up with the power shift and then managing down with the power shift as you are working to kind of transfer power to the local farmer organizations? I think you're on mute, Aiby.
Sometimes it's difficult to say we are 100% free, as my colleague already said. But the autonomy part is still there, because when we are supporting the farmer organization, their hierarchy is not for us. Their hierarchy is for the local government. But we are providing them with resources and technical capacities. So still they have room for us, even though they are not directly responsible for us. But that linkage has some of power share with us to them. It is not 100% free, because at least they develop their own operational plan, 5-year strategic plan, everything's just we help them to develop that. And sometimes we guide when we are looking some risks over that, guidance happens. So that linkage is already there. In my US related attachment, sometimes when budget shortage happens, like for example, on admin parts or any other things, usually we get support for them. So sometimes we in our weekly calls and annual plans, when we are free to plan our operational plan for a year, but we get a saying from them. So because in some limitations, they are there just to support us. So that still brings some bondage with them. So that is what I can say now, but totally what I can say is before, when they are in Ethiopia, when the Ferengi teams are in Ethiopia, most of the guidance happens from them. In each program area, the expert is there and they guide things just to operate on their perspective. But now it is my team that develops everything. They see the final comment, but every initiation happens at the local team. That's what I can see. But when the donation comes from the government fund, like USAID or from other government, Europe government, it has its own bureaucracy. But for me, when you are linking your vision to the foundations, associations, and rich individuals, maybe they are interested on your objectives, on your mission, and they donate for that. But when it is a competitional bid, usually it has its own different kind of bureaucracy structures. And my interest is not the government funding usually. Usually so much I am supported by foundations, associations, and rich individuals. So
There's a little bit more flexibility in that space.
Yeah, they have flexibilities on that. When they are interested in objectives, usually the bid part is very challenging because a lot of organizations compete by minimizing the overall cost. Sometimes that is unrealistic for when they are implementing at the ground, but to win that bid, they come with unrealistic approach. That is the bad habits now. But when we are open to our objectives, mission to the donors, in-person attachment, meeting engagement is better than a competitional approach for me.
Thank you. And Mary, can you talk a little bit about in your experience with the USAID Transition Award, and the shift that you've seen, or any shift that you have seen in power, in particular, how has that change gone from in having direct communication and access to USAID? Has it been smooth? Has it been bumpy? Were there lessons learned along the way? And then I see this Wan in the chat is saying that shifting risk, but only the appearance of power is actually a step back. So as you have transitioned in kind of your relationship with USAID, what is that like in terms of the risk that you're taking on, but then also the power that you have?
Okay, thank you. True, during the entire process, there has been gradual transfer of power, authority, responsibility, and inevitably risks. As you take on the power and authority, risks come along with it. And on my side, it depends on the capacity you have to anticipate the risks, plan for them, mitigate them, avoid, or how to address. And some of the things, again, we kept on learning with the international organizations, but also with USAID directly, is how do we put together things like risk registers, we review them periodically, have them updated, come up with plans to address some of the risks. And the other thing is engaging with them in a timely manner. In case you get something, you anticipate or just sense that something is about to happen, instead of hiding away from them, linking up with them so that we work with them to see how certain things can be addressed. So I found that very important along the way. The other thing I could talk about still in this whole scenario, having the power and authority helps us a lot. And when we work as a prime directly with USAID, you have your award documents, or the award documents, the contract. It stipulates most of the things. Actually, I tell my teams that that's my Bible, my Quran, which I refer to on a regular basis, because when I do so, it helps me plan, foresee, and mitigate some of the risks. But definitely, you cannot have power without risk. Thank you.
Right, let me open it up for some questions. I appreciate the conversation and the questions in the chat. Thank you. If you have any other questions, please feel free to raise your hand or to put your question in the chat. Let me also pause and see if my colleague, Annie, are you available? Are you here on the call? Annie may or may not be on the call. Jenna, do you know if she's here?
I'm here. Sorry,
Hi,
I was looking for my unmute button. Yes.
So Annie Shippenberry, welcome. Annie is Humentum's Director of Locally Led Development. She has having in these conversations constantly, and I wanted to just bring you in to see kind of what your reflections from this conversation were, and then any questions that have been coming up for you as you've been listening.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you to those who have had the conversation and reflection for us today. I think the thing that really struck me, and it's something that seems to be popping up in different spaces, is the differentiation in terms of terms. When you say, localization, what does that look like? And what does that look like in different sectors? The way localization looks in humanitarian is slightly different from the way localization looks in long-term programming, for example. When we say locally led development, right? What is that and what does that look like? And when you throw into the mix, shifting the power and decolonization, we can get a bit embroiled in those terms. So one thing that I sort of picked is definitely there is need beyond the funders, beyond the INGOs who seem to be at the forefront of defining these terms, as well as defining the frameworks of implementing this vision that these terms represent. I think part of what is required and is, I think, necessary holding space as part of transforming the relationships within the ecosystem is having CSOs and local organizations define those terms and then define what they mean to them and what they mean to them in terms of the vision for change, as well as the framework of how they want that vision for change to happen and be implemented, and give them how shall I put it, a leadership role in achieving that. So just from a conceptual framing, a visioning kind of perspective, and a framework as a roadmap for achieving that vision perspective. Those are some of the things that came out of the conversation and questions that also we could carry from the conversation, as well as a call to action from the conversation. Then the second thing I wanted to point to, if you have framed the vision, if you have defined the vision and what the aspiration means, and you have a framework and a roadmap. One thing that is came out, and very good examples, it's most people then say, okay, we've bought into it. That's what we are hearing from a lot of INGOs. But how do we do it? There are so many ways of resistance. There's passive resistance. There's even active resistance. I'm talking about it, but I'm not practically doing something about it, or I'm being tokenistic in supporting, like CSOs or local organizations to actually then take up that leadership and be the ones that drive local development. So for me, it's something that also came out and was good to have practical examples for those who may be tokenistic or may be resisting in various ways as they try to reproduce themselves to be something else that continues to perpetuate them, a model where they are still the ones who have the upper hand. So today was really good in terms of giving us some practical examples for those who are like, so how do I do it? We're like, here is what it looks like, right? And here is how we can counter some of the narratives that are out there around, they don't have capacity, they are not able to lead, it's a lot of risk and whatnot. Yes, we've heard that for a couple of years now. And so what? What do we do about it? So today we were hearing the so what do you do about it, so that we can also counter those narratives. And then the last thing I wanted to also point out is, we don't only want to, there are two sides of a coin in this transformation, right? So CSOs, local organizations also have some work to do in terms of, we heard already from the inputs that were being given, in terms of mindset shift, how they perceive themselves as having the capacity to do what they need to do to take up this leadership, even though there are challenges and even though there are things to address. And it's really important as they transform that we do not replicate the power symmetries and inequalities that are there, that, we are trying to do systems change and transformation of the current system, but we create a new one that just now has, like CSOs in a different power formation that is not equitable and inclusive, even if it's locally driven, right? So that's something to also watch out for and keep an eye on. So those would be my reflections from today's conversation.
Thank you. There's a lot there. Thank you for that summary. Very rich. And one thing that it made me think of, Annie, is your first point, which is, around this language piece, and that it's so contextualized. Just last week, this time initiative that I run, Transforming INGO Models for Equity, hosted an in-person event in Senegal with 40 CSOs, 40 local organizations, that was run and facilitated by 2 local institutions. And the conversations that were had were around really defining localization. And in the report out that I received, it was really, but this is our definition for Senegal. This is not for Mali. This is our definition for Senegal. And so what I'm hearing is, how we define local is very contextualized, and it may even be organization to organization, person to person. And so a question that I have for Mary, Aiby, and Jameel is, do you have that vision that Annie has talked about? Have you articulated a vision for what success would look like for you or for your kind of space that you operate in? And have you articulated and communicated that to your partners, whether that is to the INGOs that you work with or to the funders that you work with? And I say that because I often speak with INGOs who are thinking a lot about reimagining their partnership approach and they're doing a lot of thinking about, well, this is how we want to partner, and then are struggling in kind of implementing it. But on the flip side is, how are organizations that are local institutions thinking about how you all want to partner, and then how to implement that piece? Is that something that you have done, Jameel?
Yeah, thank you very much. How we are showing our partner or no, through the communication. This is what I said: open communication, two-way communication between each other. We show them how this partnership affect what the good sides of this partnership, what we achieved through the achievement, through the success stories that we have to do. So it should be a two-way communication and open communication, trust communication. If I trust my donor, or I trust my and the donor trusts me, so the communication will be open, and we will report everything happening either sideways, at the bad side, or at the good side. But if there is no communication between the donor or the NGO and the local partner, and there is mistrust, so there will be hidden information, and this hidden information will affect the partnership. So this is how we communicate with and how we make sure that our side, our view of the partnership is transferring or transited to the other partner. Thank you.
It always comes down to trust, and trust takes time, doesn't it? Mary, please.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. On my side, what I would look at as success in this partnership, I would look at mainly 3 areas. Number 1, the quantitative, whereby, authority, power, responsibility has been handed over to me. I'm able to implement and be able to achieve the targets as stipulated, meet the expectations of the donor and the key client. Here in Uganda, the key client is the Ministry of Health. That's the quantitative. The other area is qualitative. Again, as I achieve my program results, I need to also look at the quality of the programs that I'm implementing. If they're good quality to standard, then I'm successful. But also under quality, there is program management. Yeah, so we talked about the risks. What are those bottlenecks along the way that I'm meeting? Are those things that would have been avoidable if I had the better capacity, or if I had done implementation supervision better? So on my side, the frequency, quality of those bottlenecks, or my ability to address them will inform me whether I'm successful or not. And then the last one, number 3, we cannot talk about me as a local partner being successful when I cannot sustain myself. I need to have the capacity to look for business, to mobilize resources. So again, my ability to look out for proposals, to write how many successful proposals am I looking at, my ability to meaningfully engage with my partners, my donors, whether discussing de minimis or whatever, like my ability to negotiate some of those things tells me that I'm successful or not. Thank you.
Because in order to do that, you have to come from a place of power. Thank you. Aiby, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just in past 7 years, the experience that I have is on our potential of sustainability. As already I explained before, we are sustained and we are scaling aggressively. So that shows our potential. We are capable as a local team. In addition, we maintained positive impact at the community level, and that the positive impact that we generate through the years. We have a continuous annual evaluation of our progress changes at the household level. So that is a base for our income. That is true change per year that is certified by the evaluation of external evaluators is a key indicator for the donors on our impact positive reaction. So that creates so many. So our pipeline is positive due to the continued impact at the community level. The other is our positive relationship that is established with the government and the community. Still now, our program impact is well witnessed by the community structure. So the witness that we have from the local communities, from the government structure, the positive relationship, our linkage with the government with periodic report, our linkage with the donors with periodic reports, with clean audit reports, impact reports, that makes a positive relation between the partners. So we maintain that tempo with all of our partners, not only on the report, but we are very much good host for the visitors. Usually we create an environment to show our initiatives, the change at the community level. So our demonstration site is our showcases, it reflects what is already done at the community level. So we develop success stories, other things that shows our visibilities at the community and the change. So these are maintaining positive linkages with the partners. So now directly we are receiving funds out structures from US. We have different sources from different Europes, USA. So this is due to positive impact that we have created. As I said before, we took the responsibility with a small number of farmer organizations, that is 26 farmer organizations. Now we are leading more than 200 farmer organizations, benefiting more than 33,000 households. That is more than 200,000 individuals. So this scale is with our potential after the exit of the foreign aid team.
All right, final question. This webinar is called Flipping the Script on Partnerships. So if you were to give one piece of advice or key learning to other local institutions who are interested in changing how they partner and interested in flipping the script and how they engage with stakeholders, what piece of advice would you give? Jameel, why don't we start with you?
One best advice for this, you have to be transparent with your partner. No matter what, you have to be transparent with your partner, and you have to open a channel for a two-way communication with him. That's vital for successful of the partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary?
Thank you. Yeah, on top of the transparency, communication is very important, because for somebody, your partner, to know how to support you, they have to know where you are, where are the gaps, where is your strength, so that they build on that to help you improve. But if you don't communicate or tell them that, then it becomes very difficult. But I would like to tell the partners that this is all possible, and it's you to make it happen. Be open-minded, communicate, willing to change, it will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Aiby?
Now, what they said is right. Communication matters.
All right. Any based on other conversations that you've had, any other thoughts or suggestions that you would have on flipping the script on partnerships? Are you there, any? All right. So here's what I would say. What I love about this conversation is that we have been on a journey. We have talked about, you know, some of the things what we just ended with was around communication and the importance of trust and communication, and having a two-way relationship. But then we've also really gotten into some of the really practical nuts and bolts pieces of what that looks like moving from risk transfer to risk sharing, and the fact that it's easier said than done. It's actually quite difficult to do that in practical terms. And then the financial side of things. We can never forget about the financial side of things, because that so often is an enabler of what's possible. So how do you have the time and the resources to make the change? But then also how are organizations being set up for success with things like overhead rates? And also the ability to do fundraising and to source their own funds. So some of these are things that are coming up. I've also heard some really good tactical, practical suggestions around things like coalitions between INGOs and local institutions. We've heard things around talking about coming up with your own vision of success and developing, joint partnerships approaches with partners. We've heard talk about flowing down resources and risk conversations. So these are things I think that we can continue to have conversations about within the space that Humentum creates and others. I hope that you go back to your organizations and take some of this back with you. I would really like to thank Mary, Aiby, and Jameel for being here today and sharing their experiences. And with that, I will hand it back over to you, Jenna, to close us out.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Kim, and thank you to all of our wonderful panelists. This has been such an interesting conversation. It's been great to be a part of it and be listening. As a reminder, everyone, we did record this session, so stay tuned for a video in your inbox, and please do share with colleagues that may be interested. If you are not familiar with Humentum, we do offer many different events for the sector. We also offer membership. If you're not a Humentum member, feel free to check us out online and learn more about the ways that we can help support your organization. But thank you. That's all I want to close with, is a big thank you to everybody who made this event possible and everybody who gave their time to attend and to listen. So thank you so much, everybody, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.